of this stuff. So, and you only got 27 minutes. Okay.
Okay. Oh my God.
Right?
Okay.
So hi, I'm Dr. Nikita Vizniak, and I'm here with the amazing
Dr. Bob VanHorlick.
And today we are going to talk about one of the fundamental parts of being a real healer in practice, and I'm going to pass it off to a doctor with much more experience than me, Dr. VanHorlick here.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you doing this today, and it's a very important part of my last 30 years as a naturopathic physician of coming to the understanding of what this truly is about. So today, part of the aspect of naturopathic medicine is about the healing triangle. It's a multi-dimensional concept, or looking into a patient's wellness, but also within our own world of wellness. So if we look at the mind, the emotions, and the body, the physical aspects, many people come to us with pain. They come to basically because of pain to many disciplines.
Yeah.
It's what we do with that that matters. And in the naturopathic profession, one of the things that's really looked at, physical pain, a lot of times, as we understand, comes from emotional pain or mental pain. But you can't really separate them because they all interact within the consciousness of the individual.
And that's a super good point right there, because we realize a lot of people think they're more anatomical based, so they just focus on one area. Or
that's
people
right.
are more counseling based, and they just focus on one area.
Correct.
And really, when you're looking at an injury, it is a multifactorial level of injury that you have to get through. And if you're just treating one of these aspects, you're missing a bigger part of the picture.
Absolutely. And about 15 years into my medical practice, I finally realized that most patients' problems, while it manifests physically or emotionally or mentally, really come from a disturbance of the vital essence or the force or the spirituality or consciousness of the individual.
Yeah. Stop for 1 sec. You're doing great. Everything you're saying is fantastic, but talk to the camera.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the key thing. I'm going to put this guy. You're going to talk to the bone.
Okay. Right on.
Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what we're trying to engage. Because it's
Yeah,
just
that's
the
right.
two of us right here,
Yeah.
but that's what we're trying to engage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, where you're talking about vital force?
Yeah, so the vital force in naturopathic medicine, and I teach my first and second year students a lot, that the vital force is the essence of what and who we are. So we can think of that as soul, we can think of that as a essence that sustains life, whatever we want to call it. The reality is it's a life force that has an innate ability to heal. And when we look at that on the mental level, let's take a look at that. How do we make our mind well? Well, it's by bringing it in harmony or back to balance with the emotions, because emotions impart vitality to thought. If we just think without having a conscious understanding of what we're thinking, we start to create a world based on those thought forms. Many forms of thought, higher thought, have led to the understanding that our world without is a reflection of the world within. That starts mind-wise. If we hold negative thoughts, negative consciousness, we start to manifest that more in our daily life. Our emotional world, which has to be look like a body just like the physical, what's our emotions do? Our emotions can run amok and create many, many disturbances in our mind and affect our physical body. So emotion may or may not be true, and that's the delicate aspects of emotion.
Yeah, and these are such good points too, because so many patients come in and they define themselves by their condition. So they've built this huge emotional and mental aspect around the injury that they have, and it's holding them back from the physical healing that they need.
And one of the most important things, we have to be careful about labels. As we know in psychiatry, we give people labels all the time. Everything is related to that label then for that patient they're on. So as a naturopathic doctor, you have to not look at the label. Treat the whole person, which is one of our major principles. How do we treat the whole person? Well, number one, you have to look at the mind, the emotions, and the body all in unison together to come up with an actual treatment program that will actually affect all these. And there's some very important, simple aspects of that. One, do we breathe? Breathing is one of the fundamentals that help our mind, emotions, and body. You don't live long without breath.
Yeah,
Number two is hydration. Without hydration, we can affect our mental, emotional, and physical bodies directly.
True, and that's a good point too. Even hydration for a lot of patients, what are we seeing now? It's not water as their source, it's some kind of fruit drink or pop or something.
Or coffee
like
or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
And that further dehydrates the internal parts of the body. Yeah. If you take those trillions of cells that are bathed in the extracellular fluid, that is what removes toxins and waste from the normal cellular metabolism, let alone the toxic pollution today in today's world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, emotion and the body. Now, let's take a look at the body. The body is the brunt of a lot of the mental and emotional aspects of ourselves that we do to ourselves, right? So breathing, hydration, physical exercise, rest. The physical body, we know now in lymphatics that the brain needs deep, deep-rooted rest to actually flush out those amyloid plaques and stuff out of the body to help prevent Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and all of these diseases that we face today so much. Emotional wellness. How can we be happy if we don't have emotional connection and wellness to the people we love and share that? We can't. We must always remind ourselves that mental, emotional, and physical well-being leads to the center of gravity, why I created this healing triangle. Center of gravity shifts towards where the disturbance of the wellness, the disturbance of the force is within that consciousness of the person. The naturopathic doctor or other healers need to be aware, how do we shift that back? We must shift that back by recognizing, not treating symptoms all the time, not just treating one part. We must treat the whole person. And we must engage the person in their own wellness.
Excellent. And so one of the things that I'm getting from this as I'm learning more about it in my own practice and development here, and even though I've been licensed for over 20 years, one of the things to realize is we're always learning, we're always developing new skill set.
Absolutely.
Dr. VanHorlick, how long have you been in practice for?
Well, I've been a naturopathic physician for around 30 years.
Yeah.
But I had a very busy holistic practice, many years as a herbalist, back in the 70s.
Yeah.
So it's taken a long time for me to understand the complexity of this.
But what we're looking at effectively then is 40 years of your clinical experience.
That's right.
And what you found has worked for most patients, and a recognition of the center of gravity pushing people off balance.
Absolutely.
And the basic treatments that you're seeing, there's so much research out there on different topics, but at the end of the day, it's all finding a balance point between these different regions.
And you know what makes this so unique? Every person is an individual. We cannot treat everybody as a size pair 9 shoes fits all.
Yeah.
It doesn't work in true medicine. Like, we look at parts and aspects, you know, the old Hippocrates and Socrates had it right. Vitalism and holism is greater than the sum of, the sum of its parts is greater than just one part. And we must look at that as medicine today. We are facing such complex problems today in our society, with anywhere from children to older adults, etc., because of the environment we're growing up in now. Everything is that highway
it's the information stream. It's all screens everywhere we are. You're seeing information thrown at you like crazy. Even foods, we're seeing what are called foods and food-like products.
That's right. Yeah, and they can exist now forever, it seems.
Yes. Yeah.
So what we're facing there is not only the bombardment of external toxins and poisons environment, we're facing the very realism of how are we going to survive in the next century. Our bodies genetically don't change or are being affected dramatically by these poisons and things affecting the genetics of our whole holistic wellness.
100%. And if you actually look at most of human history, what were we? We were out in the fields, walking around,
That's right.
regular activity throughout the day, and eating whole foods and having to work for that food.
And we also, Nick, you know, we pulled a carrot out of the ground or a root and wiped it off and ate it.
Yeah.
The biodiversity of the microbiome now is so critical, and we know now through science that the mind is affected, the whole gut is affected, the emotional parts of people are affected. Without our microbiome being healthy, we are losing the battle against wellness and health. Medically, we can keep people alive forever now, but that's not wellness and it's not vitality. We must distinguish the difference between wellness and vitality compared to just existing. Vitality is the state of being creative and being vital and have that vitalistic wellness inside. That's our healing ability.
And finding the enjoyment in life.
And finding the enjoyment. Gratitude for what we have.
Absolutely.
Love comes, and love does heal all. But we have to be able to receive love and give love. And experiments have shown that when we can laugh and enjoy each other, being out in nature, and now there's research being done about being in nature rather than giving drugs for depression, nature wins hands down. We must always remember, love is the key to keeping this wellness, our center of gravity where we belong. We need to be connected. So one of the things I always teach my students, breath, hydration, alive foods, rest, exercise, and connection. That's what brings love to our life and enjoyment and makes us a unique being.
All right. Dr. VanHorlick, could you take us through the naturopathic principles?
I sure can. So one of the things that governs the light of naturopathic medicine or naturopathy is healing principles that have existed since 1902 when it first began.
But even before that.
And even before
we're
that.
talking that this is like tens of thousands.
That's right. Dr. Luss put it into a package called naturopathy.
Yeah.
And so what we did, our medical schools from 1902 have been a full 4-year program. So one of the things about the principles, first, do no harm. First, do no harm means a big thing. Every physician should listen to that and say, am I doing, at least if I can't help, don't do any more harm.
Yeah.
Number 2 is that the healing power of nature is what makes this real. Naturopathic doctors observe nature in its natural form by watching animals. How many of us eat, Nick, and go lay down and relax and let our digestion take place?
Yeah.
We know science, parasympathetic nervous system takes over when we relax, when we eat. But how many of us do that? We get up and run to work. We get run on the computer. We don't pay any attention to relaxation in our digestion. Number 3 is that one of the biggest things is treat the whole person. This mental, emotional, and physical aspect is the whole person. And that's one of the things that I really saw after being in practice for quite a while, actually. Sorry it took me so long to figure it out. But it was one of the things that really dawned on me one day when I was working with patients, and I realized, oh my God, the mental, emotional, and physical aspects of the person is connected to everything going on within that realm.
And I think this is a really important thing to say is people think when they graduate, yes, technically you're licensed with your college or whatever else it is, and you think that you are able to help people. But really, it's still a practice. We're still all learning as we go through.
Absolutely.
And what works for one patient may not work for the next patient.
Yes.
But unless you are addressing these primary areas,
That's
you
right.
are missing the picture for your patients.
Yes, and to identify and treat the root cause, why I drew this, is that if the root cause, if this gravity is shifted mentally, and you're just dealing with the physical, like Crohn's disease or colitis,
Yeah.
Crohn's and colitis are very connected to an emotional imbalance within that person. They develop physical pain. But if you don't address the mental, emotional picture, you will never get that patient well. I don't care how many drugs is used, how many homeopathics, how many botanicals, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That person must be connected and bring that center of gravity back to the balance.
Yeah.
Number 4, prevention. That old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, came from those eras when they understood this. And the great teachers like Lindlar and Lust and these guys really had this down in a sense of understanding simple things work.
Excellent. In fact, this is something where I'm just going in my writing now. It's taking me however long it's been, 15, 20 years to get here. Minimal effective dose. What's the least that I have to do to help this person get better?
That is the primary purpose of what our therapeutic order is about, Nick.
Yeah.
So when we look at the therapeutic order, and there was one more thing on the principles. Doctor is teacher. Josier. Physicians of all practices originally came as teachers. That was part of the thing of helping people is to teach them.
Yeah.
So when we look at the therapeutic order, we have to identify, first of all, we have to address the person's complaint because that person's coming to us for a reason. Even if it's not the real reason, we still have to address it. The next thing is, what are the obstacles to cure? We must help that person remove the obstacle. And you said an important thing, minimal dose. A lot of doctors think you have to give something. I've learned it's what you take away sometimes that really makes the tremendous difference in that patient's life. And if you do give something, the sicker someone is, the less you use. Because the vital force is what heals. Nobody heals anybody.
That's a really good point. You can call it innate intelligence, whatever you want, depending on your discipline. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
At the end of the day, we only facilitate optimal healing conditions.
That's right.
The patient has to do it themselves.
That's right.
There's a couple of really good points right there. Number 1, doctor as teacher is near and dear to my heart. As everybody knows, one of the best things that I like to do is teaching a class. But one of the best points of feedback I get from my own patients is, you're the first doctor that actually sat down and told me what was going on.
To explain it.
And explain to me in words that I can understand.
That's right.
And that's the biggest battle. Education is key for your patients.
Absolutely.
Education.
You know, it's interesting, my 4th-year interns, when I'm teaching, one of the first things I teach them, observe. You must observe nature. Observe the patient. Number 2, make connection.
Yes.
Right? Be a doctor. Be a person first, and then put your doctor hat on. If that patient connects with you, that therapeutic relationship is critical. I don't care if they call it what they call it, whether it's it's placebo effect.
Exactly, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
There has to be trust established in your expertise.
That's exactly right.
Another one of my favorite quotes that I give out there is the best outcome for patients is their own belief in future wellness and your ability to help them.
And when you bring them into concept about understanding this, and I tell my interns, take this drawing, sit down with your patient, and go through that, or what that exactly means. Yeah. And so number 4, if we activate the vital force of the person, this is when we can do this by listening to the determinants of health, which is good food and all those things we talked about.
Yep.
Once we activate the VIS, or the vital force of that person, the healing process begins.
I like that name, the VIS.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that I thought, by strengthening the weakened systems, that means mind, emotion, and body. There's techniques and tools to help emotionally, techniques and tools mentally, techniques and tools physically. One of the things I use a lot is something called integrated body psychotherapy. It's how we help the person identify the emotional injury that's stuck in the body, that's affecting the body and the mind. And there's tools that we can use to remove that.
For sure. And we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but a lot of us have realized this, though, that when you're treating a patient for whatever reason, just last week I treated somebody, we adjusted their neck, and they burst into tears.
That's right.
Because of the emotional release. You'll be working on somebody in their gastroc or hamstring, and all of a sudden the same kind of thing. They'll have a memory that they haven't had forever. Or my personal favorite, when you're doing your history and a patient tells you, no, I've never broken any bones or whatever it is, and then you see the scars on your wrist, and they're like, well, yeah, I broke both of my wrists 5 years ago.
And they're split off from it.
Yes.
And the idea of the physician is helping people connect, both mentally, emotionally, physically, to the center of their own gravity, within themselves. That has them and start to empower them to take responsibility for their wellness.
Absolutely, and that's the biggest thing. Like working in the U.S. and everything too, I've had contracts for patients with them to try to quit smoking, lose weight, all that stuff. It doesn't work until you give them empowerment and engagement in their
Absolutely. You know, a big proponent of that is Tony Robbins, who I met and did some work with. But Tony, talks a lot about this in his own way, and what I've learned over, I don't know how many thousands of patients I've treated, but those patients, when I see them actually take responsibility for their wellness and I can assist them, I feel like I've done a good job. And one of the things about our principles is that if we have to use more invasive techniques, such as even using botanical medicine or homeopathics or nutritional support systems, whatever, they are added into the mix. They're added to the vital force. Anything we add to the vital force, unless it's suppressive, it will enhance the vital force. When we take that next step down to number 6 on therapeutic order, that's more invasive techniques. And this is where allopathic medicine is really good. Yeah. We need to have that understanding. There's times we need drugs and surgery and times to support what we can support. Yeah. We also have to recognize it's actually not what really enhances the vital force of the person. It's what all those other things that we do first, like the 5 determinants of health.
But it also gets you through that crisis stage.
It gets you through that crisis stage. Yeah. As I tell a lot of my patients, if you get hit by a whole wheat bread truck, you need to see a good surgeon, then come and see me. Yeah. And so mentally, emotionally, physically, we as an organism survive when we are in connection with our true principles of who we are. And we must be true to ourselves, always. Every great spiritual teaching has taught, be true to thyself. And if you look at this yellow ring, that yellow ring, if we want to look at in my own eyes, we are soul having this human experience. We express through our mind and through our emotions and through our physical body in this dimensional state of consciousness. There is much more goes on beyond here, but for our talk today, I think we've talked about the healing triangle and some of the important things about helping patients make contact, and physicians should learn this and start to operate from this on all disciplines.
Absolutely. And there's only one thing I'm going to add to it too. There's another principle that we're working on right now. It's called follow the evidence. And it's not being fully evidence-based, but it's at least being evidence-informed, so you can tailor that process, what the research is telling us, and how it fits into this overall process.
So just a quick note on that. Follow the evidence is important. But we all know that scientific validation is long after we see it clinical results.
Yes.
And clinical results, from a perspective when we're working with a primary care patient, is that we must look at this first. Science will always prove we're right. Yeah. Science has proved naturopathic medicine right so many times. Yeah. And we must understand the wholeness of what we're trying to do as physicians, as healers. And when healing takes place, it's not us doing the healing. It's a far greater essence that is doing that.
That's right. And again, I just want to thank Dr. Bob VanHorlick for coming in and doing this for everybody.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, it's been a pleasure to have you here, and
thank you.
Hopefully you will find this useful, and it can be part of the overall makeup, kind of the puzzle pieces that make your practice a better practice, or help you engage better in life and with other patients, or whatever your outcome is.
Yes.
Hopefully you found this useful.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right. I just want to say my point of gratitude today as well is just it's been an honor to actually learn from great doctors like this, and always trying to find those people that you can use as mentors and bounce ideas off of. And Dr. VanHorlick, I really appreciate the time that you spent to do this, and it's just been a pleasure having you as a colleague.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate all the work you've done. Hugs a day is important.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
So that's basically it right there. So, yeah.
I think that wasn't bad.